بالفعل أنا على وشك النزول من الطائرة. هل نسيت الخطة مرة أخرى؟ دعني أكررها لك مرة أخرى.
Yes, that's right.
أولا سنقوم بتسجيل الدخول إلى الفندق. لا تنسى طلب وجبة الإفطار للغد من مكتب الاستقبال. في اليوم الثاني سنذهب لتذوق المأكولات المحلية والقيام ببعض التسوق.
Dun 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 dun.
Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls. Wait, Gob, do you have a microphone there? Is your mic plugged in?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All is well. But just remember to be turning it on before speaking, while you as well. When you want to make contributions or have any questions.
We are back like Musana, the both of you. The both of you.
I knew this was going to come up.
I said that Musana was Nyanja and the both of you.
No, the argument was, is it the back or is it the waist?
No, you said it's Umsana.
Yeah, Umsana is the waist, the whole waist, round the waist.
No, but I was talking about back. And the both of you knew nothing about it. And you were schooled in the comments. Yes. I sent you the screenshots.
Yeah, after I analyzed the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, who speaks good Nyanja in this room? Mr. Mwenye?
Yes, sir.
Mulandesh Nyanja nangu chibemba fema.
Fiance vivid.
Fiance. Umsana mchi Nyanja nshane.
Musana.
Musana? And then the back? Your back?
He just confirmed what I said.
It's one.
Huh?
It's one.
He just confirmed what I said. And these two
Musana is the waist, round the waist.
So what's your back?
Inuma, in Bemba is Inuma.
No, the Bembas distinguish it. I haven't heard the distinction in Nyanja, to be honest.
Also, there's the same thing. Musana, and the back is the same thing in Nyanja.
I told you this though in that episode.
Now we start to be corrected.
Is it because I'm short? Let me tell you, these two idiots fought with me. I say the same thing that you just said, and they fought with me. And then in the comments, when people watch the episode, they say, no, Elson is right.
Hey, listen, in my defense, I speak more Bemba in my life.
Then you should not be schooling people.
I was schooling people based on my language. I said in Bemba, Umusana is this one, round the waist. But anyway,
anywho,
let's talk about people making it possible.
Gob, do you want to pass me my beautiful Tecno phone right there? Bruh. And my Nosa him phone.
You can't move them?
Huh?
You can't move them?
I'll have to.
Oh, you can't hotspot.
No, I cannot. We've had, Mr. Mwenye, we've had these guys. They are our beautiful partners, Tecno.
Yeah, gave us very good phones.
They gave us very good phones. They also gave us watches.
Yes.
Did you get one?
Yes, I did.
Have you tried out the earpods as well? The earphones?
No, I wasn't given those.
Oh, man.
I should get myself.
There you go. George has one.
George has some.
I should get myself one of those.
Please do.
It's nice and thin.
Please, it is. So this particular one is the Camon 40. In fact, when you get this, you get a free 30 gig data from MTN.
Yep.
Anything that you have played around with that you have picked up?
Just the AI. The AI is super impressive on this phone because with any other phone that you buy in the market, Mr. Mwenye, you have to start downloading so many things that are AI related, but this phone already has them like in-house, like in the phone. They just come with the phone. Like it's a major feature of the phone. You can do so much with the videos in terms of AI. You can do so much with your audio recordings, your photos as well, your research. AI is so smart nowadays. You actually teach it what you want. And then with your legal standing, in your legal profession, you can actually do a lot of research with the AI that comes with this phone.
Not only that, but one of the things that is impressive is imagine you're speaking to somebody who is speaking Chinese.
Right.
in real time, as the person is speaking on the other end of the phone, it is translating it to English.
Oh, wow.
So the person who is speaking Mandarin, but what you're hearing on your end
It's English.
is English. And as you respond to them, they are hearing Mandarin.
That's amazing.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That's amazing.
So no language barrier anymore in terms of cross-border trade, international trade. You know what I mean?
And it saves marriages. Ask me how it will save your marriage.
How?
So if you lock your phone and somebody tries to break into your phone, if they enter your passcode wrong twice, it takes a photo of the person that was attempting to get into your phone.
Okay, so who would that be?
Why would his wife
You
not
are a
have his
very smart
password?
man, sir. You're a very smart man. I'm sure you can tell what I'm trying to say here.
No, but the
I
question
mean,
is,
you were saying there's only two of you in this house.
so I think for him, that begs the question, why would his wife not have his password?
Hey, listen. I say what I said.
And it was nice meeting your wife. Very lovely lady. She gave us very good snacks and
And she
nice
gave
tea.
you lemon tea.
Yes.
And I know by the end of this episode, I'm going to have flu.
No, you won't. You're fine.
Where did you get your flu from? Your children?
Yeah, school's open last week.
That's where you got your
So
flu
most
from.
likely, yeah.
Big shout out to Brothers, Big Tree. Those are our other friends, Mr. Mwenye.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever tried any.
I have. In fact, I had a long-standing professional relationship with that institute.
You don't say.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Big Tree. So big shout out to Brothers. For the previous year, amazing partners. Keep checking out the flavors that these guys bring us. We try to be as diverse as possible.
Yeah.
If diversity were two people, or if diversity was a podcast,
Yeah. Okay.
that's what we said. Would you say Mwenye?
Mr. Mwenye, your wife is the Zika president, right?
she is.
Talk about a power couple. How did you meet?
We met. It was a club.
Like me.
Like him?
It wasn't in a club. I was at University of Zambia, I think, studying my final year, if I'm not mistaken. And then she was studying accountancy at the Accountancy Training College in Chingola. So we had one of those closures which we used to have in those days where university would be forcefully closed. So I ended up going to work at a law firm in Chingola, and she was at school there, and that's how we met. So that's several years ago. We've known each other now for 28 years and been married 26.
That's generalizing the meeting. I'm interested in more detail of how the meeting happened.
Is that?
Like, how did you see this young chick in the corner? Was it in a restaurant? Is it...
I had a friend who I visited at the Accountancy Training College who currently works for the government, and I think is a relation of hers. And so when I visited him, he said, let's go and see my cousin. So we found her cooking, and that's how I met her.
It was the cooking, wasn't it?
Not necessarily. Perhaps the profile.
The profile.
Yeah, well,
Please explain what?
she was facing away and cooking.
Wait, so if it's like a car, low profile...
Well, it depends on perspective, but I like the profile. I still like it.
Just love at first sight.
It wasn't like a GLE.
Like the one parked out.
It was like a GLE. Oh, man. I know this is going to be a fun episode. Because clearly this man speaks his mind. Okay, so you saw the profile. And so what was the first thing that came into your mind? Because this is before she turned around.
Yeah, and then she turned around and she, I think, confirmed.
Everything was in order.
Everything now was in order.
Okay, yeah.
So was the
But
first...
I think it's the conversation as well.
that's what I was about to bring up.
Because she at the time loved crossword puzzles.
Right.
And
The ones in the newspapers?
in the magazines.
Right.
In the magazines. So she would do a lot of those crosswords, and I think for me it should be more than the view. So intellectually, she's an equal. She's my intellectual equal, and that was.
That's one thing that I always look at as well.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot have a dumb conversation.
Yeah.
If we're gonna sit there and have an intellectual conversation, I get bored easy, and sadly for me, I cannot hide when I'm bored.
Right.
And speaking of intellectual equality, it has shown even over the years how she's now the president of Zika.
We've had an interesting journey in terms of our professions. When we got married, she worked for some time and then took a career break for quite a long time.
Why was that?
I think partially because she had to go to Australia to be with the kids while they were undergoing their education, and then came back to Zambia, and then she only came back in 2020, by the way, and relaunched her career. But in terms of our professional progression, she was working before me and was getting 4 times my salary at the time.
Wow!
Because I was a student at the training institute, Ziade, now Ziade, yeah. So, and then I got called to the bar and caught up very quickly.
How many times did you attempt?
Once.
Just one time, and you
one time. Those days we were the creme de la creme. When we went to university ourselves, we only had 2 universities in Zambia. Copperbelt University, UNZA. Yeah. And there was only 1 law school in the whole country. 1, the University of Zambia Law School. I remember we were about over 54,000 who sat the grade 12 exam. UNZA was only accepting 1,200 at the time.
Wow.
And of the 1,200, about 400 wanted to study law, and the law school picked 33. That was one of those.
And how many made it through to Ziale?
We all got to Ziale. No. I think 3 remained at UNZA. A couple of us went, then we had a few repeaters, and of that first class, the pass rate maybe was better than now. We were at Ziale, we were about 33 again, and 13 of us passed first attempt.
Yeah. Why law, though?
I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. From the time I must have been in grade 6 or 7, I wanted to do 3 things. I've done 2. 1 is yet to be actualized.
What are those 3?
First of all, I wanted to be a lawyer, run a law firm, practice my law. Secondly, property development. And thirdly, I actually wanted to open a restaurant.
So what's left?
The restaurant.
The restaurant. Yeah, maybe to be a retired. I love to cook, by the way. From a young age, I've loved to cook. So I did those 2. But how I got the interest in law, apart from a short period when I lived with an uncle who was an accountant, when I nested the idea of possibly being an accountant, all through, I just wanted to be a lawyer. And that passion started in the 70s. You people may not
none of us
remember that. But there was a legal drama called Petrocelli. The older guys will remember Petrocelli.
I remember Petrocelli on ZNBC.
Yeah. So there was this guy, and it went on into the 80s. But this lawyer was always building a house on his own and helping people. So that's where the interest started. And then later on, I think towards the late 80s, when I made up my mind now, there was a program called LA Law. Maybe you guys watched
LA Law, I've heard.
Yeah, so that I just made up my mind. That's what I wanted to do.
I've had a passion for law as well.
Oh, is that so? That's good.
I used to watch a lot of Boston Legal. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes. Boston Legal, I've watched.
I always thought you'd make a better lawyer than a computer guy, hey?
I've always wanted to do law.
But
the reason why I then decided to do IT is because that the university that I went to was offering the degree which normally takes 4 years in 2 years. So because of that, I figured, okay,
I don't have much time.
But you can do it leisurely now. You can
actually you can
do it. Yeah.
As a lawyer, are you watching the Diddy case?
Well, at a distance, yeah.
Okay,
but it's an interesting case with several facets, of course.
How do you think it'll? Good question, actually.
I'm trying to understand from this perspective. Yeah. How would you defend Diddy in that case?
It's a very easy defense, though. But
No, but it's a complex case. But I think the issue there is about consent and whether or not there was the particular charges. I haven't really analyzed them, but in my very distant understanding, I think there is an element of her claiming that he forced her and that it wasn't consensual, whatever was happening. And I've noticed that the cross-examination by the defense put out there how willing she was.
Precisely, with the text messages.
How she requested for it sometimes and even made suggestions on...
Precisely. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
And what he's being charged with is sex trafficking.
Yeah, exactly.
Racketeering.
Right.
RICO, yeah.
RICO.
Yeah.
And in what they are presenting right now is more of how bad and an abusive boyfriend that he was.
Correct.
Which, if he was in trial for that,
the visual, the video and the visual images were bad. But
precisely. But then for the charges that he's facing, I have not really seen those dots connect. So it'll be interesting to see how the case unfolds.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one that I sort of really followed, and again, I'd like to pick your mind on this, that I had massive interest in was the Oscar Pistorius and the Thabo Bester. I don't know if you followed any of those two.
Oscar Pistorius, yes, it was very topical at the time.
Yeah,
but the Bester one, no, not very.
You've not heard of it?
I heard of it,
okay.
But I didn't follow it that closely. Yeah.
Now we're not going to digress, but check it out when you can.
I will
check it out.
And then, as a lawyer, you graduate from the University of Zambia, you clear Ziale. Of all the cases that you've handled, I'm trying to get the most difficult one that comes to your mind right now that you handled and actually won.
No, I've handled several huge cases.
Yeah, but which one is like most memorable for you?
I think my first trial. My first trial happened barely 10 days after my call to the bar.
What was it about?
It was about an employee of the then investment center. There was an institution called the Investment Center, which I think now is part of ZDA. They merged the three institutions to create ZDA, Zambia Development Agency. And the then acting chief executive officer of the ZDA was Honorable Margaret Monakato. She was at that time the CEO, acting CEO, and she was my witness in that trial. And so the case was about an employee who had a contract with the institution, and there was a clause in that contract that he could resign giving a month's notice, and they could terminate giving 1 month's notice. So what they did is they put him on, suspended him earlier, then reinstated him, and then after that he was dismissed using that clause after 6 months or a year. So he claimed constructive dismissal. And I remember it was before the late Tamula Kakusa, Judge Tamula Kakusa, and I was cross-examining. And there was one point in that trial that you knew it's done. I've won. I won that my first trial, by the way. So this gentleman, I asked three questions. I said to him, do you remember signing a contract with the institution? He said, yes. And the clause, I remember it even up to now. It's been decades later, but it was clause 3D. I said, could you read it? He said, he read it. I said, did it apply to you and the institution? He said, yes. Could you have resigned yourself? He said, yes. And so I said, since it was mutual, what was wrong with the institution terminating your contract? And the judge put down his pen and said, the whole case depends on this question. So he said there was nothing wrong, and I won it.
If you were a stage performer, you'd have dropped the mic at that point.
Yeah, and walked away. So it was nice to start my career on a high note. So
you must have really given you some good street cred.
Yeah.
And I can imagine how that night was when you came back home.
Yeah, it was very good.
Telling the wife.
Oh, yeah. But I used to work long hours, long hours. At one time, never had a drink or an outing for 17 years.
Wow.
And just built my career until, of course, I became AG. And
Did you join a law firm? Did you start a law firm almost immediately?
I worked, my first employment was with a former judge. He wasn't a judge at that time, so I worked for a law firm. I've always been a law firm person, and the only time I haven't practiced law is the 3 years that I worked in the government as Solicitor General and Attorney General at the time. But I only ever worked for someone for 2 years, 8 months. Throughout my career, I've worked for...
Forgive my ignorance. How big of a difference is there between Attorney General and Solicitor General?
Well, to make it simple, Solicitor General is Deputy Attorney General.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But conventionally, the principal legal advisor to the government is the Attorney General. He's an ex-official member of cabinet. He sits in the cabinet room, and he's the principal legal advisor. Functionally, usually the Solicitor General handles the litigation of the Republic, and the Solicitor General is the Attorney General handles the cabinet and policy matters. But Attorney General can do everything. I mean, do the litigation, and the Solicitor General will do what the Attorney General delegates. Yeah. So that's it. So I've only really worked for that period because that time you had to be 3 years at the bar to set up a law firm. So I worked for a certain firm, went to a bigger firm, worked for that law firm, and then I got a call. My former employer said to me, Musa, I've been appointed as a judge. Would you like to buy the law firm? Now, I was 4 months shy of qualifying to run a law firm. So I went to see now Court of Appeal judge, who was at the time chairperson of our committee that ran, it's called the Legal Practitioners Committee, that allows you to practice. And I said, this is my predicament. Says, okay, fine. Since the judge has periods to settle down and is settling down in his job as a judge, going through the ratification process, you can go there and we'll deem you to be supervised by him. Then when the 4 months ends and he formally takes up his job, come and apply. And that's how, from that time, I've been working for myself.
Yeah. So you did buy the law firm?
Yes, I did buy the law firm. So I asked him, and I said to my former boss, I said, give me 2 years to pay you off.
Yeah, I was about to ask, how do you evaluate? Not even buy, but how do you come up with the value?
It's goodwill. Sometimes it's it's a thumbs up figure, but many times the accountants, I think, know how they go about this valuation and so on, because they'll look at the accounts, see what the turnover was and the income. But he gave me a figure, and I asked him one thing: don't disturb me for 6 months. I'm not going to pay you for the first 6 months. Let me establish myself, give me a hiatus for that time. After 6 months, I'll pay you in 18 months straight, and that's it. So I kept on sending him a check every month without fail. And when I paid the 18th check, on the 19th month, he contacted me and said, is the check coming? I said, I paid you off. The contract had interest clauses. So I didn't want any interest to be paid on the rent.
Yeah.
So he said, are you sure? I said, yeah. So I sent him a letter with a full tabulation. He said, oh, okay, then just lend me some money. I said, okay. So,
what did I want to ask? So do you change the name? Because obviously the name is a brand when you buy.
I did. At the time, yes, I did. I didn't change the name for a bit of time. Mm-hmm. I kept the name as it is. And then the story doesn't end there. Remember, I'd gone to a bigger law firm, an established law firm. One of the partners, the firm I worked for was called, well, maybe I shouldn't advertise other firms here. Yeah, but it was run by now. She was recently Court of Appeal judge, and she's gone to the Seychelles, I think. A very eminent lawyer, and a gentleman who is South African, but has been in Zambia for a long time. So I practiced with them and went to be with them, and then bought this firm. And then we found that we were sharing clients because some clients had migrated to myself and helping each other. So they called me up one day and said, can we merge the firms? So I said, yeah, we can, but I want my name on the door. I said, no, let's keep the name on. I said, no. So we had a 5-minute conversation. And I said, no, I can't do that. I want my name on the door. And okay, fine. So I put the form down. within the hour, called me back and said, okay, we'll put the name on too, and we'll be equal shareholders. I said, cool. So I went back and we merged the firms, and my name was on the door because for me that was important. I was a former employee of that firm. I didn't want to go back and people think I was re-employed in the firm. So that was part of the deal. And we practiced together for some time. And then after that, I took a career break. My wife was working in Jersey in the Channel Islands then. So I went to do trademark consulting there while she was working in the financial services sector in the Channel Islands.
I've always said you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate.
Yeah, true.
And it's testament to what you just said.
Yeah. So I'm a tough negotiator, and I think it's important to know what you want in life. Precisely. And also to have a set of values that you stick to and you pursue.
I can imagine how many things you've walked away from.
A lot, especially money, dirty money. I've walked away from a lot of dirty money.
Yeah, we're coming to that because there was an apparent bribe that you wanted for $3 million.
No, that is that MP has apologized. I don't know whether you know the end of that story. I sued him in court. He made a public apology on his Facebook page. And
just for context, for people who don't know what this is about.
Okay, so when I left as Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson, I declared my assets because I wasn't required by law, but I believe that we should lead by integrity in financial matters. And I think it's a moral duty. So I went to the Chief Justice and made a declaration of how much I had and how many properties I had, and my net value is essentially. And I don't know whether he was sent or whether he did it on his own volition, but this gentleman just went on a tirade because I represented a particular client against a mining company in a very high-profile case, and he just made up lies about me demanding to be paid $3 million in that case.
Is this the one with the Kankoyo MP?
I think so, yes. I think that's his constituency, yeah. So he made very scurrilous attacks. So there's still a contempt proceeding pending, which I think is being discussed for settlement. So the only thing I can do is sue for defamation.
So you did?
I did. I sued for defamation.
Did you win?
Yes, of course. He apologized. He came and conceded and said, I'm sorry. We signed a consent judgment. He said, I told lies about this person and I was being malicious, and there was a public apology because I demanded.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I wanted my vindication that he should tell the truth.
You know what I would have asked for? $3 million?
No, at the end of the day,
You've got too much money.
No.
The poetic justice.
Yes, punishment is due, but sometimes you let people to be dealt with by God. So at the end
that
of the day...
That takes too long, sir.
Well, he has his own way.
That takes too long.
I know. The most important thing for me is vindication. Okay? My name is worth more than any other amount I can get from any person, especially in matters of financial integrity. I've never taken a bribe in my life. I'm one of the only, I can't remember any other public official who has served in this country who has called for the government to audit them and see how much they have and whether they've stolen any money. And I did that. I've been very clear on those issues. Yeah.
I am more interested in two things, really. From the outside looking in, these are offices that you read about a lot, which is your time as AG and your time in the ACC.
Yeah.
So I want to start with your time as AG. Whenever the reports are made available, I always go through them. I've tried to cover some of the findings that
Which reports?
The financial reports from the Attorney General.
No. The Auditor General is the one who does financial reports. The Attorney General is strictly legal.
Right, yes. I just confused
You mix them, yeah.
Yeah, I missed the two.
Yeah, but they have the same acronym, AG, so it's easy to confuse them, yeah.
Okay.
But functionally, the AG is the legal advisor and does legal advice.
Do you sort of dabble as well? Give legal advice in that space to the Attorney General?
No, I mean, when I'm consulted, if I'm consulted, right. I'm a patriot. Yeah. I love my country, and if those in these offices ask for my opinion, I'll give it. Yeah.
How long did you serve as AG?
I think slightly over a year, because I'd done about 2 years as Solicitor General. I think about a year, not more than a year. Couple of months to a year, I think, because President Michael Sata died at some point. And after that, there were the controversial elections. It seems I've made it a habit to be fired. When President Sata died, there was this thing as to who could take over between Guy Scott and President Lungu. And former President, Vice President Guy Scott, the Constitution gave him the mandate to take over under Article 38 at that time. So those in the ruling party, because I was part of the government, thought that it would be convenient to side with President Lungu because he would be the candidate, and I refused to compromise my principles because the law was what it said, and I said Guy Scott is the one who should take over for the 3 months. Yeah. So shortly after President Lungu was elected, I got the boot.
Why do you think that?
Well, I don't know. I can't get into.
But
Because of your support for Guy Scott.
If you can speculate.
Well, I didn't support Guy Scott. I supported the Constitution. The Constitution, which said that Guy Scott, as Vice President, was the only one who was eligible to act as president pending the by-election, presidential by-election. Yeah.
When I read your profile, at some point, yes, of course, you were board chairperson for the Anti-Corruption Commission, and you have a very high-standing reputation as a man of integrity. But then that board got dissolved.
Right.
And a lot of times we make those assumptions of a board like that being dissolved because of, certain issues happening in the board. What really happened with that dissolution?
Oh, I can't get into the mind of the appointing authorities, but I can tell you about the circumstances and the events that led up to the dissolution of the
Please
board.
do.
Yeah. So we had a bit of contestation between the board, which I chaired, and the management. And the board of the ACC does not have functional powers, like operative powers, where you can arrest, investigate. The board gives oversight on policy issues. And I think there was at the time some feeling that the management was not moving strongly enough on corruption and was not doing that in a non-partisan manner. So they were just going for former leaders and not looking at current corruption. And we made it very clear that we were unhappy about that. And towards the tail end, one of our board members, who's a person I consider a person of very high integrity, went public with our dissatisfaction with what was happening. And this was run over a 3-day period in the press. And following that, the board was dissolved.
So do you think that the board was dissolved as a result of that?
I know what happened before, and I know that the board was dissolved. It doesn't matter what I think. So I'm not sure why it happened, but I do know that the events that led to the dissolution of the board was because one of the board members became a whistleblower to highlight certain misunderstandings and dissatisfaction. And following that, the board was dissolved. Yeah. So that is the background. So, I mean, in public office, look, it's not a secret. I don't make a very good sycophant. I'm not a very good praise singer in any place. I'll speak my mind with world leaders. I've been privileged at a very young age to work with presidents all over the world. I've served on Commonwealth Observer missions. I remember in 2016, I spent a month with President Thabo Mbeki in Ghana. I've worked with Jakaya Kikwete, Kalonzo Musyoka, and a lot of other world leaders. And I've learned that it's important to be truthful, to speak truth to power. A respectful way, of course, and not to massage leaders, because always, no matter what you say, at the end of the day, when the rubber hits the road, these leaders miss the people who are telling them the truth when times are bad. And people lie to leaders, mislead them, and cause them to make wrong decisions. But when the classic thing about sycophants is they move on to the next leader and become good sycophants for that one as well. And so I would rather be truthful. I'm candid, and that has won me some friends and lost me some friends. It's fine.
And made you enemies.
Correct. That's okay.
Does the ACC have a new board now?
Yes, it does. It does have a new board.
So in your opinion, do you feel that the ACC has changed its stance and is as aggressive as you would have wanted to see it during your?
The jury is still out on that one. Maybe, and in fairness to them, let's give them a bit more time. But one thing that is true is that we are 4 years into this administration. Elections next year, and no single high-profile official from this government has been arrested. But from what we are hearing, corruption is alive and well. So it's up to you to judge.
So how much power do you have as the chairman of the ACC when you see what you have just said and you are not satisfied?
No, very little. It's essentially titular. It's policy. Look, a lot of people glorify these positions. I've never made money from government, maybe because I'm...
No, by power, I mean power to change.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's a non-executive position.
Yeah.
So it's not a full-time job. I think the sitting allowance I was getting, you'll be surprised, was for the board meetings would have once a quarter, 2,500 kwacha, I think.
Per day?
No. 3 months, the board meeting. If we have one board meeting every quarter, I would get 2,500 kwacha in an envelope for sitting and chairing an ACC board meeting.
That's true?
Yeah.
Gobi can confirm. You've been a board chairperson before? Or your sister? Oh.
For the ACC?
Yes, as board chairperson.
All board chairpersons.
Government board chairperson positions are not very lucrative. And yes, we would be paid a retainer of 25,000.
I was about to ask, there must be some perks hidden somewhere.
25,000 kwacha per quarter. And if you aggregate it, that's 9,000 kwacha per month. Now, how much is a bottle of Glen 18?
I don't drink, but I can imagine.
So I had no security here. I still had. I insisted. They would send a car to pick you up for board meetings. I said, look, this is a fuss. I'll drive myself. I've got vehicles. I'll drive myself there. There was no security, no driver, nothing. You do it because you love your country, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the notion that is, when people leave those jobs, they are bitter or they are losing some, there's nothing I gained from there.
But I'm sure that position opens doors for you elsewhere.
What doors?
I don't know.
You're can come in
a powerful position.
And I'm not corrupt. So there's nothing. I was attorney general before, which was even higher. What you people don't know is there was a time I was caught in this administration and offered director of public prosecutions. I refused.
Why?
Because I'd served as AG and I'm not going to go and I'll not. The position is this. Next time I go into a full government position, I'm retiring from my practice of the law and my private business. And I wasn't ready to retire. But I refused to be DPP. I refused to be DG of the ACC, which are full-time positions and which are pensionable, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not ready to retire from the practice of the law and my private business.
I was just checking out that there were some criticisms from I always confuse Simon Mwela with Simon Mwewa. Mm-hmm. He made some criticisms that you did not do enough during your tenure.
Well,
did you see those comments though?
I did, but what positions has he held? Because you see, at the end of the day,
very good question,
Simon.
These pedestrian comments are easy to make. You're a pedestrian in the street, and Monday morning quarterbacks. Okay, I have served in government, and I know what it is to serve in government. The first thing that you must do is ask whether that person served with integrity. I made a sacrifice. I went into government. I served. I never got a bribe. That's the first thing the ACC chairperson and the board must do, is to show that they can lead with integrity. We did a lot of things. We extended the Anti-Corruption Commission to every place, province in this country. We opened 3-4 new offices, if I'm not mistaken. We increased the fleet of vehicles from 4 or 5 to 42. I can go on and on to the things that we did. Now, could we have done anything more considering our powers and the constraints before us? No, we couldn't.
What's that? Why couldn't you?
We didn't have the operational powers to do that. The board can't go and say, I'm going to arrest you. Or Kadenga, come here for questioning. The board chair can't do that. It's the director general. And we have records that we did what we could. We wrote where we could. And policy-wise, the powers that we had in the board, we did everything within our powers. And we couldn't do more.
Can a board fire the DG?
No. The DG is appointed by the president and ratified by parliament.
I've got a two-part question. Let me ask the first part first. And this is just your opinions now, especially having been board chairperson of the Anti-Corruption Commission. Or even before that, because you pushed for the campaign for lifestyle audits. First of all, what gave you that push? What gave you that drive to push for lifestyle audits?
Listen, the biggest problem that this country has is not lack of competent people. It's not lack of qualified people. It's corruption. The reason why we have substandard roads is sometimes because someone has gotten a kickback and you won't do a proper inspection of those roads and call for implementation of the standards that are agreed. And I've seen people setting policy in this country for something as silly as a phone, a good phone. They'd receive. I remember when I was in government, I had a certain foreign national who came and offered me, at the time it was a Huawei P9. I said, this is a gift. And I called one of the officers into my office. We sat down and I said, you've given me a gift, but you know that I have a contract that I'm considering, which is yours. So I gave back the phone, said, I can't get any gifts from you. And now that you have shown me that you are willing to gift me, I'll look at the contract more closely. And but people have accepted these things, something like a free trip, and then you start being nice. But we must be patriotic. The most important thing is to put the nation first. And that is the biggest problem. Now, how do we counter that problem? Is to look, I built this house when I was 27, 28 years old. I still live here. Of course, I have several other properties which I've acquired legitimately. But if you ask me about those things, if I'm celebrating the properties I have, I must show how much money I made. You can't have millionaires who have never filed a tax return. How? You can't. And this is the problem with social media. We celebrate, someone posts a big car and we are busy liking and so on. Someone posts a big house. And I remember one young man who is well-meaning said to me, but why are we harassing people who make money? Why should we criminalize riches? No one criminalizes riches. We criminalize shady money. Okay? So, here is what happens in a country like this. You let the mafia rise and become popular, and they have so much money, which they can't explain. And if everyone operates like that, where are you going to get the taxes to improve the lives of the people? There are people in this country who have nice cars, big houses. They've never filed a single tax return. If I have money and I show you, I post a big house and I post a big car, ask me two questions. Number one, how did you make the money? Number two, how much taxes have you paid?
I've always said the same thing.
If you make $1 million, you must have paid 16% VAT somewhere.
I've always the biggest flex is to show the taxes that you've paid.
Correct. Pay your taxes, show us. But there are millionaires, I can tell you, in this country that have never paid a single tax and they have never filed a tax return. But the internet celebrities with a lot of money and so on.
So
I don't have any.
So after your campaign for lifestyle audits, nobody has taken it up after
Well,
you?
I offered myself. That's all I can do. I can't ask people to do it. But I said, come on.
No, like nobody has taken it up after you.
No, nothing.
Why do you think so?
Even after I declared my assets recently. Not
But why do you think there's no interest in lifestyle audits? and
Well,
stuff?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, just this past week, we have seen somebody in Kitwe get arrested for possession of cocaine. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And you see, this is the sad thing, and it signals a thing. It's not enough for people to be rich. They should be rich in a clean and sustainable way. These things, we've seen people, they are in government, they are very wealthy, posting nice cars. The next thing, they're out of government, the money goes. Government should not be an end in itself, and politics should not be a money-making venture. And I think as a populace now, we should start scrutinizing our people and seeing whether there is real success. Because even some people who may have shown us that they are successful, now I'm doubtful whether they were really successful. Because those are things that we need to start checking the track record so that for sure we know that these people have clean money. You don't want a lot of dirty money into your politics and having these unsustainable riches. Yes, people should make money. Yes, they should aspire for riches, but it should be done properly. I'm one of those people. Maybe I'm naive. I don't believe in miracle money.
There seemed to be some lifestyle audit, but then we only saw people like Your Maps losing property when they post about it, the Land Cruisers and them.
Yeah, no,
I don't think that was a lifestyle audit.
What was it?
I think they were after that particular car for a while because of the person that
Okay,
gifted it to him.
there was that, but
Yeah, so by definition, a lifestyle audit is looking at the lifestyle of someone against their income and seeing whether they match. So if you have...
okay, but my point with the whole Your Maps thing is, well, I think what that bred again was people now afraid to even talk about what they own and even afraid to buy expensive cars because ACC is going to chase me. People are now,
But why are you afraid to buy it
Exactly.
if it's legitimate?
No. My point is, anybody now is thinking, okay, if I make money, I'm going to be chased by anti-corruption commission.
Let them chase. If it's clean, there's nothing. I don't get this.
People, look, they can come and ask me.
You've audited yourself before.
No, I pay my taxes. Before I went to the I don't like talking about money. I don't like posting anything that I do.
And boasting.
Yeah, but before I went to the ACC as chair, I did a 10-year summary of what my law firm paid as total taxes,
Which was
$2.4 million,
in 10 years.
just 10 years.
Okay. So we can work backwards to know how much your law firm.
You know, and I've been practicing law for over 25 years. So why shouldn't I explain? That's the taxes, total taxes. Pay your taxes and then live the free conscience.
Made.
Yeah, because that's.
Let me do the math. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You said 2 point?
$2.4 million.
2.4.
In total taxes.
Yes.
I'm saying total taxes.
Yes. So we can work backwards. But anyway, the Daily Revelation said that you and your wife were facing arrest at some point.
Yeah, well, it happens. We are both public figures.
So what were the charges that you guys were?
No, we don't know up to now. But the report was that there was some plot to inconvenience us. But it comes with the territory. You don't do the things.
Which territory is that?
The territory that I've worked in particularly, and at the end of the day,
The AG or the ACC?
both. The jobs I've done, I've not been selling ice cream to make people happy. I've made some difficult decisions. And you make some enemies. And the things that I say are uncomfortable things. So it comes to that territory. It's a sacrifice.
Should we also get a lawyer after this episode airs?
No. Why should you? You're Zambians. This is your country.
Hey.
You are protected. We should not live in fear. What we should do is speak respectfully, but firmly. Yeah, there's nothing wrong. What is bad is to insult people. But if you're telling the truth and saying it in a respectful manner, you shouldn't be afraid.
You don't think the truth is subjective?
No, the truth is the truth. Unless we are talking about rumors. But the truth is the truth. I'm a man. There's no subjectivity about that.
You can't hide the truth.
Yeah. If you say you're barefooted or you're wearing shoes, if the truth is that I'm wearing a shoe, there's no subjectivity over that. Any other thing would be a lie. Yeah.
Speaking of truth, what's the truth behind the accident that you had on Lake Road opposite Choppies at 4 a.m. with a lot of news coming out that you were drunk?
What done? Now,
Was there foul play? Were you really drunk?
I don't want to talk about the security issues that surround it because it's just not helpful. But what it showed me as well, it's humbling. It's humbling that a person like me who was raised by a single mother and who died when I was somewhere in grade 11, and from the time I was at UNZA, I've really never had a proper guardian, that I should, a simple accident, which one of you hasn't had an accident?
Me.
Oh, well, God bless you. But
Me too.
But you are much younger than I am. But a simple accident was spoken about for 7 days straight. At the same time as two prominent other people had died. I remember Honorable Kambwiri sadly lost his two brothers in a road accident around the time, and Honorable Kampyongo had a road accident right in front of State House. But it's humbling that I was...
Harry Calabar as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a humbling thing. Perhaps you never know.
So what happened?
What happened is at that time, I had two visiting friends who are Ghanaians. One works for the AU, and the other works for the United Nations. They're both Ghanaian. Interestingly, one is very close to the then President Nana Akufo-Addo, and the other one is very close to Mahama. So they were in town. They asked me that they wanted to see me, and I took them out. I was in the presence of a permanent secretary at Cabinet Office, and a certain young man who I consider my younger brother. And so we were entertaining these UN and AU officials, and when I was driving home, just at Choppies here 1 minute away, when I was turning into the road, because of circumstances I can't mention, I lost control, and that was it.
Are these circumstances alcohol?
No. Look, the point is this. Let's not get into... The issue is this. The police issued a statement that I was drunk, and that those are the preliminary findings.
Because they breathalyzed. They gave you breathalyzer. You did a breathalyzer
There
test.
is no valid report on that breathalyzer.
No
I don't want to get into that. But the police issued a statement about that issue and that they were investigating. I respect the police and I support the police service. But the truth of the matter is that the investigation was done and the charges were dropped.
So were the police lying?
No, I don't want to say that. They said those were their preliminary findings. I'm not going to fault them on that. All I know is that...
You are a man who stands up for your reputation, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's worth far more than any amount of money.
Yeah.
So if somebody says something which is inaccurate or which is not true...
There is a lot that has been said about me. A lot. But I know that there are certain battles that are not worth fighting.
And the battle with the police not worth fighting?
If at the end of the day they drop the charges on them, but what am I fighting for?
Your reputation?
No, they haven't. I've never had a criminal conviction. It's different.
If you say for 7 days straight, they keep talking about it.
Look. I'm a former law enforcement official at the ACC. There's a certain code I share with fellow law enforcement agencies. It's like the thing akin between priests and men of God. There's certain things they can do to each other and certain things they can't do to each other. All I can say over that incident is a preliminary statement was issued and later on charges were dropped. I don't want to get into those details. The police were a sister organ to the place where I was working, and it's just not helpful to get into that sparring match. So in life, there are certain battles you can foster. Others are not necessary. Okay, even assuming that... I took a drink. But how many of you don't drink? Apart from him. Yeah. But
the priest there doesn't drink.
Yeah, the priest doesn't drink. So are we saying that those then that take a drink, there's something wrong with them? And it's about levels of that drink or whatever it is. So I don't want, and that's the reason why I don't want to be sanctimonious and get into these high-sounding conversations over that issue. But the accident did happen. Yeah, and all accidents are unfortunate.
How bad was it?
Very minor. My car is parked outside here.
The Mercedes?
No, the Hilux.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's parked here. The fence I hit into was fixed, and
You spoke of a single mom. What was your upbringing like? What was your dad?
my dad was an absentee dad largely. I grew up with my mother. Later
Where?
on in Lusaka.
Oh, okay.
In Lusaka, my mom died when I was in grade 11. Ended up going to live with my uncle, who also died.
No, wait, you were born in Lusaka?
Born in Lusaka, born and bred.
Musa is... I've seen the name somewhere. What, the Holy Quran? It's Moses in Arabic, right?
Well, yeah, conventionally, I think that is the thinking. But
Were you named under that pretext, Islam?
well, maybe my father has that background, but I personally have been Christian throughout.
So your absentee dad named you.
Yeah, he named me.
Your mom was very patient.
Well, no, but you can be present for the 2 days the child is born and name them.
True.
And
And then go and buy
disappear.
cigarettes and never come back.
Yeah. No, but my dad then got married. My dad and mom were courting, and they were about to.
So, but the surname came from your dad?
Yeah. That's
Mwenye. Mwenye is what? Indian?
well, it means Indian, but it's a name derived. I think it's found here. It's very rare. There are other countries where it's more prominent. Yeah, but it has Arabic roots. So my dad was got married, and I never grew up with my dad. So I have 2 siblings on my mom's side. Both of them live in Australia and are doing very fine on their own. Yeah.
This man went to Australia. One time,
We're going to bring it up again.
15 years ago. We've never
Don't disrespect me,
heard
7
the
years ago.
end of it. He knows... What plane was it? What aircraft was it? They're Boeing what?
Moving on, he grew up with a single
Let
mom.
me tell you. He knows the kind of
Hey,
aircraft.
making noise. Nelson.
He remembers the shirt he was wearing.
It was a very memorable trip.
Which city?
Perth.
Yeah, Perth is nice. It's a good place to
That's
rest
the
your
aircraft that he was on.
Well, what aircraft?
So you're single mom.
Yeah.
I think we need to have you on every episode for him to not speak about Australia anymore. Because, with your
single mom.
this shame.
What was that like? You before the 2 came after you, right? And
The 2 came after. My mom was a very strong mother. She instilled several values in us. But one thing that she did is never doubted our abilities. I remember once I didn't have shoes for school. And she told me, call your dad. So I called him a couple of times. And he kept on telling me next Tuesday, next Thursday, next this, next.
so you're going to school barefoot.
No, I had shoes, but they were finished.
All right, okay. Next Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday, the other one. And then finally he just said, keep on waiting, and bang the phone. So,
He said this, keep on waiting.
yeah, and bang the phone. So, at school then, primary school, I was at Lusaka Boys Primary School in those days. I had the then intelligence chief, one of the intelligence chiefs in the Kaunda government, his son was my classmate. And so one day, as God would have it, he just said, would you like these shoes, Musa? And he gave me the shoes. So I started wearing them. And my mom looked and said, I think she loved him. So she said, did your dad buy you those shoes? She seemed excited. So I said, no. She said, but what happened? I said, no, don't worry about it, Mom. She said, no, I want to know what happened. So I explained, and she cried. She really cried. And she said things that haunted me years later. She said to me, look, you are going to succeed wildly in your life. And you will be a very successful person. But if you ever forgive your father, you're as much a dog as he is.
Wow.
So then she died not too long after that. That was very difficult for me because years later, my dad, as God would have it, fell into difficult times.
And he reached out.
No, he didn't. We were always communicating from the time I started marrying.
All right.
Look, when you are marrying, it unifies families.
Yeah, true.
And from the time I was
can't
getting
relate.
married, and also at the time I was at Ziadi, in fairness to him, I stayed with him for about a month. and then moved out again. So we had started relating and talking, and the bond had started being reestablished. And then he got divorced, and no one else was taking care of him. So I went into the Bible and started reading. I read it several times on that, and the Bible says, I believe in the Bible. Other people have other faiths, but there is a verse which says, honor your father and your mother,
That your days of your
that it may go well with you.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't say honor a good father or a good mother. It just says your father and your mother. So I chose to obey the word of God instead of my mother, unfortunately. And I took care of my dad, paid his rent. At one time, he moved out of his house and put his house on rent. So I paid his rent, put him on a monthly allowance, took care of all his medical bills, gave him a 7 Series BMW.
Whoa.
And I took care of him until he died. The funeral was here.
Did you ever tell him what your mother said to you?
No, we had a difficult conversation. I can't remember whether I told him, but we sat down and I told him, I said, look, we need to talk about this, because I flew him to Australia, by the way, for holiday.
On a Boeing 747.
Now you said it. See what I mean?
No, it was Airbus A380 actually.
Yeah, so we had a difficult conversation. I believe in talking. I think you can't fry eggs without breaking them first. So we sat down. We had a brutally honest conversation, and I told him, I said, look, what happened? I don't believe you love me, because I think two issues happened. When once on one of our holidays, when we were in Australia, we sat down, and it's the first time ever that we had been in the same space when it was my birthday. And he had never wished me a happy birthday. In fact, he died without ever wishing me a happy birthday. So it was my birthday, and my kids and my wife arranged lunch, and we went together with my dad, and they brought the cake, and the old man just never wished me a happy birthday. And then later on, I was unwell. So I went up, and he said, no, okay, good night. I had a headache. Came back the next day. And the old man never checked how I was that morning. So I sat down with him, and I said, look, I love you as my father because I have to honor you. You are my dad. But why didn't you say anything about it? And the conversation that I had later on shows that if you understand someone, you become more forgiving of them. He then went on to explain to me how he grew up. How at times, because it was so cold and he was chucked out, he had nowhere to live, he would go, Muslim cemeteries, they have those fallows where the water runs to wash, when they wash the bodies. That is where he would sleep for warmth. Because it was open area and in the village or something like that. So he explained to me the difficulties that he had in his life, and I understood his upbringing and the fact that he was just incapable of showing that kind of love. After that, he started trying, and you could see he was making a real effort. So to that extent, I think I understood him. Most of these old folks, maybe you guys, the generation of your parents are younger. But our parents, they were hard. They were brought up
my dad was too, yeah.
Yeah, they were brought up in a cultural setting that...
Never showed emotions.
Yeah, even our older cousins, they'll never tell you they love you. They'll just hold you, it's my church. That's how they're telling you they love you. So if you get to understand people, you then realize the roads they've walked in, and then it makes you a bit more forgiving of their the way they treat you.
How much of that has made you the kind of parent that you are now?
I think I decided to be close to my children. I'm very close to my children. And
how many kids do you have?
2. So my son and my daughter, I'm very close to them, and we interact very closely. And I believe in talking to kids. I believe that having viable conversations with children, they are not as unsophisticated as we think sometimes. And this understanding comes from one experience I had, not of course with my dad, but my uncle, my maternal uncle, was the one I talked about, who I lived with briefly and nested the idea of being an accountant. And so he, I don't know whether any of you have PSTs. In our time, it had just started coming, and my best friend had pierced his ears, and so I wanted to pierce my ears, and told my mom, I'm going to pierce my ears. Mothers those days were full of expletives.
She cursed you out.
She gave you some.
Cursed me out. But I was determined. So she told my uncle, and my uncle came to visit. And the way he dealt with the situation was respectful. And so he said to me, oh, Musa, you want to pierce your ears? I said, yeah. So he said, oh, okay. So, but you told me you want to be a lawyer. He said, yeah. Oh, okay. But how would that impact your profession? Do you think you can go into court with an earring? I said, no, I don't think so. He said, yeah. And is it something that you'd encourage your son to do? And then we had a very intellectual conversation. After that, I said, I'm not doing it.
Smart guy.
Yeah. So it taught me that when there are times when tough love is needed, but most of the times talking to children rationally achieves results as well.
Do you think a woman can raise a man?
Yes, my mother raised me. And I believe I'm more man in every sense of the word.
Even though she told you not to forgive.
Yeah. I mean, a man can do that as well. But she raised. In fact, in my experience, to be honest with you, I haven't done a survey. It's not scientific, but the people I've encountered, it's very funny that single mother raised children actually succeed a lot. And I think it comes from that thing where you don't want to disappoint your mom, who suffered for you that much.
And you also want to prove something to your left.
Yes, but if you think about it, the ones that I've encountered, single mother raised children succeed.
But isn't success subjective?
Well, success is success. Poverty is poverty.
No, success is not success. It's subjective.
Well,
because what you deem as success is different to what the next person deems as success.
Okay. So what is your view of success?
One person can say, if I buy a car, I'm successful.
Uh-huh.
One person can say, if I can leave a legacy, a company to my children, I'm successful. So it depends with...
No, I think my notion of success is slightly universal. The fact that you can bring up children who can then sustain themselves and maintain their lives. There is no success in failing to keep yourself after you leave home. So single mother raised children de-nest easily. They leave the nest and are able to sustain themselves.
Just say the last thing that you said. You said if you're able to do what?
If you're able to raise your offspring to be able to take care of themselves responsibly after they leave home. For me, that is success. It's not becoming hugely rich, no. But if they are able to work successfully, sustainably, and be able to keep themselves so that they can continue your name in the next generation. Yeah, that is
precisely why I said I feel like it's subjective, because, there's people that say, you look at, I'll give you a very wild example. You look at Donald Trump, for example, who then say, if my child is able to do better than I have, then I deem that a success. And what you would say is, if you are able to sustain your lifestyle, not necessarily on a vehicle, on a bicycle, but can you pay your rent, can you buy food, you deem that a success. Yeah. Hence why I'd say, depending on who you ask, they look at it differently. Reason why I'd say, do you feel a woman can raise a man is, I've always felt like, but women inherently are emotional beings, right? And a woman would most likely be one of two things, either too soft or too hard. too soft because, especially when they've got a boy, we know the dynamic of the relationship that they have. Or they could be too hard to say, if I'm too soft on this child, then they would grow up not be equipped to face the world. So they might not have that balance that they require.
No, women are the best. They raise children better than men. In fact, women raise men better than men. If you look at the Hebrew tradition and the Jewish people...
But then, speaking to what happened to you with your piercings, where your uncle then came in and had a separate approach to the cursing out that your mother did.
No, the cursing out was... My uncle was unique in his own way. It wasn't because he was a man. A woman can do exactly what my uncle did. And they do that. For example, my wife is much calmer than I am. I've never seen a person who is calmer than her under fire. So you can't say that she can't do that if she's a woman. She's a very, very calm person. So I think my uncle did that because he was that kind of person. And a woman could do exactly what my uncle did. I was going to say, under the Jewish tradition, again, I could be wrong, but from what I've read, the people who teach the Jewish children the Torah and the Jewish teachings are the ladies. Even that's why Jewish literacy is important, because a Jewish woman would be literate. But if you see the Jewish men that these women bring up, they're very successful. You go from there
Is
to
that true? He's a Hebrew, by the way.
Uh-huh.
There's a mic there.
Yeah.
You can turn it on. You were saying?
Yeah.
So it's very true. I totally second to what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because, mothers spend more time with their children.
Yeah.
So it gives them that opportunity to inculcate good morals in them.
Yeah. That's why, for me, whether there's a man or not in the house, it's the women who raise their children. Even busy. My wife is busy, but she talks more to my children than I do. You see? So in the times of wars, traditionally and culturally in the olden days, the women have been the bedrock of the homes. That's why these matriarchs, if you look back, the men are symbolic. They will speak, they'll raise the men. Of course, they'll participate. But when you drill down, not always, but most of the time, the woman is the one.
I do agree a lot in what you're saying. I mean, growing up, obviously having both parents in my home, there were very few words that were scarier than "wait till your father gets home." I could be naughty, I could be jumping up and down, I could be doing whatever I want.
Yeah.
Once my mother said, "Wait till I tell your father,"
Right.
that would sober me up immediately.
True. So the father is the policeman, not necessarily raising.
Hence why the balance
True.
is key.
So enforcement of values, sometimes the woman is the one who is strong. My mother was, as you say, my uncle was softer than my mother. My mother was the one who would fear. When I would go home, those days there was songs of Tabule and so on. When I come home at 18, I would listen to that music. If she's playing Tabule, I know. Go back and spend another hour.
She's in a good mood.
She's in a good mood. But she was a strict disciplinarian. But I appreciate the fact that she inculcated values of hard work, but also taught us that, and she said these words to me and my brother, and my sister was a bit too young. She said, "You are poor. I'll leave you nothing. You have to build your own wealth. So when you're playing with your friends who come from rich parents who are driving their parents' cars, I don't have any of that. You play with them, but know how you get where you get." So throughout my life, peer pressure has never been a huge issue, because my mom drilled that into us, that we had our own path. My younger brother, I'll tell you a story. Once we were, because the way God put it, I had a friend who would take me in sometimes when I had closed UNZA. But my brother was at DK, David Counter Technical School. So when he's closed, I'll be at UNZA and he would stay with me. Up to this day, I don't know whether I should even be disclosing this. I mean, no matter how big the bed is, I sleep on the edge. it's a habit I've
I'm the
developed
same way.
from sharing a single bed with my younger brother at university. It was really small. So a friend of mine asked us to go and live with him. We moved in with him. He had just finished university and gotten a job. So during the times that UNZA was closed, that's the time I met my wife. So a good thing came out of that. So we stayed with him, and one day he just came. He was a nice guy, very nice guy. He came to me and said, "You guys have to go." He just said, "You have to go, guys." Yeah. And so that night, me and my brother knelt down and cried and prayed. I'm a person who just moves. So I had 20 kwacha equivalent now, which was 20,000 kwacha then. So I told my brother, let's go. So we walked from Emmersdale to the town, what's this, Intercity. I had my bag. So I told him, I'm going to Chingoro. I don't know where I'm going to be, but we had no cell phones in the day. But try to call this particular law firm and see whether I'm there. I think I'll be there. Call me to tell me you're alive. Find an auntie or an uncle to stay with. I gave him 5 kwacha, went 15 kwacha to Chingola, and arrived with 3 kwacha in my pocket. Straight to that law firm, asked for a job. I was given the job. I asked, let me start tomorrow. Went to look for where to stay. And a few months later, my younger brother called me.
A few months?
Yeah, a month or so later, because that closure was quite long. A month or so, a few weeks later, my brother called me on the phone. The secretary said, "Oh, someone who says is your brother is on the phone." And the answer said, "Musa, I just called to tell you I'm alive." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at Bank of Zambia. I got a job."
Wow.
Counting soiled notes. And Bank of Zambia is a very sharp guy. Bank of Zambia sponsored him for, I think, a year or two of his time at CBU. The other sponsorship was done by Citibank. Yeah, I paid the first year of his fees. So, yeah, it's been quite a journey. And yeah,
What do you think the secret is for both you and your brother and other people? Basically,
my younger sister, of course, runs. She spent time in the village. When my mom died, she lived with my uncle for a bit, my auntie, and then she ended up with my grandmother in the village. And these are things that she was in the village with my grandmother, and she went to a village school in Chinyunyu, east of Chongwe. And then my auntie just called me up and said, for almost a year now, I keep dreaming your mom telling me to get her daughter. Can you bring your sister here? And that's how she came to town. She runs her own business in Perth now. Yeah.
I was asking, what do you think the secret is in the success that you, your brother, your sister managed to find? Because from dealing the cards that you were dealt, where you're chucked out and you got 20 kwacha, a lot of people would wallow in their own misery.
Yeah. And we talk about this with my brother. I remember this week, I think I was telling someone that the difference is we never considered that our destination. We were passing through. And I asked him once, I said, did you ever think that we were hopeless? When you take away hope from a person,
that's it.
That's what kills them. But we never lost hope. We knew we were going through a process, but we had a destination. And we kind of knew how we would get there. Remember, our mother always told us, you are poor, you need to study. So for us, school was a vehicle, and we were already doing that.
Please tell this one.
That was education is a big equalizer. The surprising thing is that those days, the children of certain very prominent rich people were the ones we admired. But that's also
why you look at me like that, Elson?
Yeah, but their fathers are now our friends.
He's still under the notion that education only means you should have a degree.
No,
I study, and I believe I'm educated even without a degree.
Yeah.
Here is my
2 cents.
2 cents
on the matter. Yeah,
yes.
Give us.
you can always have something to fall back on. I have not worked for anybody since leaving Belgium.
I've not worked for anybody since I resigned my last job 10 years ago.
If ever it gets to a point where I want to get into employment and I want to begin to work and I want to fall back, I always have that degree to do that.
So I need a degree to fall back on?
No. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that's one thing that nobody can ever take away from you.
Yeah, and what nobody can take away from me is what I've studied from the books that I studied, the business books.
No, I hear
so that's always stuck with me, and I can always start a business if anything goes south.
100%.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you get, God forbid, into an accident,
Right.
which hinders you from doing what you do right now, and you now need to get a job.
I don't need a job.
They will. Why?
Because I know how to work my way through life.
But that's what I'm saying, that with what you're doing right now, you will not be able to do it if you become disabled, right? So how then would you now begin to earn a living?
Mr. Musa Mwenye talked about the Bible. There's so many principles I've learned from the Bible on how I can stand on what talents God has given me. Even if I was in an accident today, trust me, I would never suffer in my life because of principles I've learned from the Bible.
But anyway,
I would never ever suffer.
Look, I hear you.
I've survived 10 years without a degree or employment. I've survived. My kids are in very good schools. I live in a very good neighborhood.
There is evidence of individuals who become billionaires who dropped out of school.
Yeah.
But I think the issue here is
The reason why we know them is because they are the exception to the rule.
True. But I grew up in a time where we had no other option in education.
And times have changed, yeah.
Yeah. So times may have changed. I'm not an authority on that. But the truth is that during my time, those were the Kaunda days, we had only 2 universities. We didn't have the internet. There was no cell phones. There was the knowledge economy was not there. You guys are living in a knowledge economy now. I did not know or even think that you could have a YouTube blog those days and that you could make money from content creation. So the industry has evolved and there are new jobs being done. But the point is this: you cannot succeed without knowledge. It's as simple.
That's why I read a lot.
So if you run a small shop, which is 20 by 20, the only way you can build a ShopRite kind of or pick and pay kind of operation is if you get into knowing what systems they employ and learn about the road that others have walked. So, but also financial literacy is very important because there are some lawyers who are financially literate.
Yeah, true.
There are some professionals who are good at their job, but they just don't know how to invest and manage their money and so on. So that's why you find people who run businesses who boast to you and say, "Oh, I bought that brand new car, cash." Truly financially literate people know that is actually
A better investment.
Yeah.
When you were in law school and you were going through the ranks to start your own law firm, did you ever aspire to be in government?
No, but I've always been someone who cares about public affairs and governance issues. I've always been that kind of issue from the time I was at university to the time I started. Always, when the Oasis Forum was being formed, I was there. We've done activism. We've fought President Chiluba's third term campaign. And at every epoch of at least the time that I've been a lawyer, I've been involved in public affairs in one way or the other.
Do you have any political aspirations?
No, I don't have any immediate political aspirations. But one thing I always say is that I'm a patriot. Wherever I'm asked to serve my country, I will serve. Just like I was asked to serve as ACC chair, I served as Attorney General, as Solicitor General. I'll serve, but within limits.
Make a good
of course.
president one day.
Oh, I'm flattered.
You never think of such?
No, I don't think anyone who has achieved anything doesn't think of such lofty goals. You have. Of course, every one of us would have thought. I mean, even you, when you see the motorcade passing, you say, how would it feel sitting in that car?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No, never.
Oh, wow. Do you want to be rich one day?
I want to be comfortable.
Okay. You You would never want to be like very wealthy. Okay. So the thing is, have you noticed how when people achieve their dreams, they gravitate towards other realms?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think most of us will think that way, and you're an exception, of course, but most of us will think that way. The thought will cross your mind. But is it something that I would pursue slavishly? No. I think being president is a big sacrifice. I live a pretty comfortable life. I love my life. I mean, me and my wife live here, the two of us. We both got professions that we love, and I think we eat what we can afford. We'll have 3 meals a day. We can drive. One would even argue that I don't boast. I don't boast, but maybe my car park has several of people's dreams. But
Yeah, true.
now to go to become president is a sacrifice. But it must be a calling. You understand? It must be a calling, and you must do it reluctantly. And the problem we've had in this country is people make it like their lives depend on it. I mean, if you do it reluctantly, go there, serve your people, and when it's time to go, leave. And if you have done a good job, you must not fear to leave.
So, in none of the appointments that you've had in government, have you positioned yourself or be intentional for you to be in that position?
No. How can I? There's no way. I'm not a politician. The only way a person can position themselves to be a president is to campaign with the people.
No, not campaign to be president, but for you to become AG, for example.
No. I was, but when I was Attorney General, I was Law Association of Zambia president, so I was doing pretty well, and I'd been elected president of the Law Association just a few months before. So to become Solicitor General would have actually cut my term short, and put me in bad light. At the time when I was going to government, the banks were coming to me and my partner to say, look, we've looked at your, perhaps you should get a loan. They were coming to us to ask for us to get loans from them. So we were being Attorney General, I lost money. This is why I say this. Perhaps people are more intelligent than I am. The people who say that they've made money from allowances in government, I lost money. Every time I would travel out of the country to do shopping for my wife, I would have to dip into my pocket because the daily subsistence allowance was not sometimes enough to sustain ourselves. So essentially, it was a sacrifice for me to go to government. But I received a call one day. I was sitting in my office, and a friend of mine said, "Where are you?" He was very well connected to the government. So I said, "I'm in my office." He said, "Can you come to Pamozi Hotel car park?" So I drove there. He said, "Jump into my car." And we drove. The next thing, I was in the presidential library sitting across President Michael's hut. And he said to me, in his usual manner, he was very bohemian. So he said to me, "I want you to come and be permanent secretary." So I said, "No, sir, I'm not an administrator. But you'd make a good permanent secretary at Ministry of Justice." I said, "No, sir, I'm not an administrator. I'm a lawyer." And he said, "Okay." Then we had a chat. He says, "Anyway, you have been a critic," because I had been quarreling with President Mwanawasa over the constitution. And I was very vocal at a young age, actually. The first presidential quarrel I had, how old are you?
38.
Okay, I was 32 when I quarreled with my first president. So I was talking, and so he told me, he says, "If you refuse to serve, I should never hear you criticizing government again." So that's when I accepted to be. I must have been 36 when I became Solicitor General and State Counsel. So I accepted to serve then. He gave me a letter on the 15th of October. And shortly afterwards, I flew to Dubai to attend the International Bar Association with my wife as last president. So we went there. During that time, he appointed someone who had been convicted as permanent secretary. And I was last president. I had my letter of appointment in my pocket. So My vice president then, who is currently RB chairperson, James Banda, my good friend, told me, he says, Musa, are you sure you want to issue a statement considering that we know you've been appointed? I said, no, I'll issue a statement. So it was front page news in the Powerful Post newspaper, and I called my appointing authority irresponsible and reckless. I said, this is a completely irresponsible decision and reckless, and I hope that President to reverse this. And it was full page, as I had a lot to say. So friends asked me, but why did you do that? I said, I don't make a good sycophant. So if the president then will not take this, then I can't work with him, because that would require me to work. But President Michael started, despite what a lot of people think, he won my respect. He never mentioned it, and went on to swear me in on the 29th of December that year. Then he took me by the hand and went, there's a place called the desk at State House, of course, it's like the reception. Told those people, told his secretary, told the people at the gate, this man does not need an appointment to see me. He must have open access to me. I need him to advise me. And that's how we worked. And every time, except one time, he accepted the advice I offered him.
Which time did he not accept it?
No, I can't go into details of presidential.
Was it political?
No, it was
personal.
No, it wasn't personal. I can't avoid. I'm not his counselor. I was Solicitor General. It was matters relating with certain issues that were handled at Ministry of Finance. It wasn't matters of corruption. What I saw is he was very clear about the corruption fight, very clear, and that's why he appointed me. He appointed very difficult people in key positions. I was a non-critic of government. He appointed me Solicitor General. The current CJ who was appointed, AG Mumba Madida, had been fired in the Rupia Banda, or his contract was not renewed, and he had been treated very badly because he made difficult decisions and refused to compromise. DPP Mtembo Nchito was known as a person who was a prosecutor in corruption fights. DG Wandi, the one who became Director General, Mrs. Wandi at ACC, had also been asked to leave because she was difficult, and he brought her back. So he had very strong people in key positions who were known to be people who don't compromise. So to that extent, I think he loved strong leadership at different levels. And he fired people. You know that 3 ministers were fired. Within the 3 years, he was president. Yeah, they were investigated, fired, and the prosecution started. I know at least 3 or 4 permanent secretaries who faced the same fate. One permanent secretary was fired when she held a lavish wedding at some hotel, and there were fireworks and so on. He said, go and enjoy your money. Here we save poor people. And she was asked to leave. Yeah.
Wow. Anything else, Olsen?
Oh, yeah, lots.
Okay.
There's lots that we haven't touched on. You're still a practicing lawyer?
Yes, I practice. I'm still in my law firm. Even at the ACC, I told you, I was non-executive chairman, so I was practicing my law.
Okay. Because I don't know why I get this feeling, and again, this is just a hunch, but I kind of feel there's a lot more you leaning more on the political aspiration side.
Mm-hmm. I'm so flattered that you see presidential qualities in me. If I'm called up to serve, I'll evaluate whether it's
reluctantly.
Reluctantly, yeah.
Well, what's your thinking on the new cyber law?
My position has been consistent. I condemned it in its state when it was passed first by the Lungu government, and I think it's not necessary to pass some of those provisions in the current law.
Why is that?
I think misinformation cannot be dealt with by clamping down. Misinformation must be dealt with by more information. That has always been my view. That's why even when you talked about the Maveta issue where he defamed me willfully and maliciously, I believe in the freedom. I've suffered myself over this internet thing. You see, what Honorable Mabeta did is exactly what Munia Zulu has been accused of doing. He's in prison now. Remember, Munia Zulu was accused of accusing certain ministers of having gotten money. Honorable Mabeta did the same to me. And he has accepted, and I've accepted his apology, by the way. That's why I don't go. But the point I'm making is that I suffered and have continued suffering at the hands of people on the internet. So I should be the first person to say, clamp down, because people have said very unkind things about me, a lot of them that are not true. But I believe in freedom. The problem we have in this country and in many African countries is we have very few Democrats, people who believe in democracy. They use it as a means to get to power, but they don't believe in the tenets of democracy. I believe in democracy. I believe that people should be free and that those freedoms, yes, someone's freedoms end where mine begins, but in terms of information, you should delve into misinformation by having more information. Look at the American situation. Every day people are calling Michelle Obama a man.
Oh, I've seen that.
Cruel things about her are said. Those are cruel. Do you see the Obamas advocating for people to be locked up? What they do is they put in more information there, because the problem with the clamping down on information and diverse views, they go underground. It's better I hear what your views are over me so that I know how to deal with those views. But when you clamp down on information, you are actually in a more vulnerable position than you would otherwise be, because you don't know what the people are thinking. You don't know some of this. Of course, there are extremes that can happen on the internet and so on, but those can be dealt with other laws. Now, I don't support laws like that. I believe in freedom. Yeah.
The new journalism bill?
I haven't studied it that much, but I think the journalists, what are we trying to cure? That's the question, which has not been cured in the past. I think self-regulation is the best. Lawyers, we self-regulate ourselves and do that. I don't know the details of it, but anything that is meant to control, stifle information is not good for democracy.
Yeah.
And I think there are 5 pieces of legislation that are worrying. One of them is that one, and there's the NGO bill and a few others. And I think they may be successfully passed, but that doesn't mean that dissent goes and it stops. The people will still think what they are thinking. And they will just use other means. I mean, they'll meet in the pubs and talk about those same things. They won't do it on the internet. They will do it at rallies. They will do it at meetings. They will do it in the bar. They will do it in the offices, in the bus stops. They will still say the same things they were saying online in their localities. And what does that solve? You are better off knowing what they are saying in their localities when they say it out loud. That's not to justify wrong behavior on the internet. No.
Yeah.
But it's to say that we must be Democrats at heart. And that's why, for me, I have a problem with the inconsistency. I mean, if you believe in what you say, if I said asset declaration is right at one time, it cannot be wrong now. If I said lifestyle audit, when I went into government, I was at the ACC. And it wasn't in my interest to start talking about declaration of asset and lifestyle audits. But that's what I believe in. I said it with respect to President Lungu and his government. It's still true now. So I think it's important that we hold true to what we believe.
And your opinion on the proposed amendment of the Constitution?
I think it's ill-timed, and my views are out there. The question is, process of constitutional reform is very important. And
But the timing?
Well, let's talk about the process first.
Yeah. Right.
And the quarrel I mentioned with President Mwanawasa that I had over the Constitution when I was a young man was basically on the process of constitutional making. I remember I issued a statement as Oasis Forum's spokesperson that time. I said, we'll fight Mwanawasa over the Constitution. It was headline news in the Post. So around 10, I saw a missed call. So I was in court. I went to pick up my wife at 12 for lunch, and I called back this call. And it was State House. I didn't know. I was naive then. So they answered. They said, who's this? I gave my name. So the president wanted to speak to you. I said, which president? He said, no, the Republican president. He said, oh, okay. Now, foolish there. I said, put him on the line. So anyway, they told me he'll call you back. And true to his word, President Manasseh called at 14. He said, I read that you intend to fight me. So I'm just calling to find out how you intend to do that.
Let's fight.
No, I said, Your Excellency, you are my senior in the profession, and I've looked up to you, and you are also my president. And yes, we'll fight you over this constitution. I'm a citizen, and there are people who are concerned that you're not doing the right thing over this constitution, and we'll fight you. And you've given promises that you haven't kept. Then he said to me, when did I promise? I said, I've got your speeches. He said, get me those speeches. I'll call you back. So I got them, and I was driving around with them 18 hours. My phone rang.
He was really pressed over this matter, eh?
No, but he was also a person who was very issue-driven. He was a Democrat.
Right.
So he wanted to know whether indeed he had said those things. And so I was driving near Hilltop there, parked in Hilltop Hospital, and I had a 1-hour conversation with the president.
And you proved him wrong.
Yes, I said, on this day, you said this, and you could hear he was writing. He wrote down, on this day, you said this. He said, Mr. Mwenye, you know, our record keeping is bad. Anyway, I didn't have those speeches. And we had a very good conversation. Now, the point of me...
He had a lot of talk time, huh?
Yeah. We talked. Those days we had postpaid phones. So he asked me those questions, and then I explained to him, but he also asked me, how do you see this going? Now, this is the reason for the process. I said to him, the position of civil society from where I come from is that you as government should not drive the process. Because a constitution is a social contract by which the people say, this is how we agree to rule ourselves.
Right.
And so you should not drive the process. It should... Now, the way the government would do it those days, I've seen it's come back now, and this is my point of opposition to the process. The way the government would do it then was the government would sit in cabinet, Ministry of Justice would draft the bill, it would go to cabinet would come up with the white paper, and then take it to parliament. After there is a constitutional review commission that would come up with those terms. So I said to the president then, you need to give up your power to come up with a white paper. So he said, how are we supposed to do that? I said, constitute a larger group of people from many walks of life to come up with a draft before it goes to parliament. Because that way, the people would participate through several representatives. That is how the process changed. For the past 20, 25 years, the way we change the constitution is we do this. We set up a wide group of people. Under Manasseh, it was the National Constitutional Conference, the NCC. There was an act of parliament that set up the NCC. It told us who the people would be, who decide what our constitution would look at. For example, it said so many members from the Law Association, so many members from EAZ, the church organizations will have so many members. So about 200-300 people came up with this, with the chairperson. Okay? I opposed Bill 10, but the process under Bill 10 was even more enhanced than what we have now. Why? Under Bill 10, they had a national dialogue forum, which was also guided by an act of parliament. So the process of constitutional making historically has always been through, historically for the past 25 years plus, it has always been through a big, wide group of people who are constituted by an act of parliament who come up with a draft. The current constitutional roadmap does not have that. So the process needs to be refined, okay? The timing also, I'm not sure that this is the best time, but if the government is intent on doing this and they are convinced that is the right thing to do, the best is to go by our constitutional convention, not to do it through the government deciding this is what the people want to be changed and then deciding let's take it. They must allow the people to say, yes, these are the clauses we want to change, and this is how they should be changed, and it should be done in a wide, broad-based representative organ. And then the procedure, for example, how do we tell that the vast majority of the people have accepted those clauses? What is the law that guides that? There's nothing. Under the National Dialogue Forum, they had the process for voting in that assembly. The NCC also had an assembly where they would vote for this particular document. So we don't have the procedure in an act of parliament. So there is no way we can determine how it would go. So I am of the view that, yes, maybe there are good reasons to change the constitution, but who decides the provisions? How will we decide that the vast majority of us have agreed? What is the mechanism put in place? And perhaps if those things are worked on, then it will dispel suspicions on the motives for the amendments. Because constitutional making is about legitimacy. It's not about legality that we have the power. No, it's about us saying, oh, we accept this document. Because what will happen is we'll have another change because people will treat it with suspicion. So it's about all of us saying, no, these are good provisions for us, and they were done in a process that is transparent and inclusive. Yeah.
Are you answered?
Very well answered, yeah.
Cool.
We could go all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with the short attention spans that we have to deal with.
Not to mention that I don't have breakfast, so I'm hungry.
There's that too.
Well, look, yeah, there's quite a lot that I wanted to know.
Before you.
No, I don't eat breakfast.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
In 2023, my dad died. His funeral was here. I was 112, 113 kgs. And I...
That's like Elson right now.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
So I do my checkup twice a year, and my dad died of diabetes. So I went for a checkup, and I was told, well, you are pre-diabetic, and we may have to put you on medication. I said, what do I need to do? So I said, you have to lose weight. So I lost 20 kilos.
Yeah. How did you do that?
Avoid sugar completely.
Say again?
Avoid sugar.
Yeah.
The amount of cake this guy eats.
So not only cake, sugar. So meaning pure juices. But I love bananas, by the way.
All right.
They're bad for you in terms of weight loss. Yeah. Bananas, grapes, just avoid sugar. Stick to watermelon. That's what I did.
I love water.
So watermelon is good?
Watermelon is good. A bit of pineapple is okay, and maybe green apples. But other than that, I'm sure there are professionals who can give you more professional advice. But I'm saying what I did. I avoided all sugar and sugary products, which I loved. And then I also cut down on my carbs.
Also known for?
Yeah. And
hey, listen, man, how much do you weigh?
Last I checked, I was at 75 last week.
Exactly how much I weigh.
Serious?
Yeah.
So it's just your height that makes you look fat, eh?
No, you and I are the same height.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
You want to stand here right now?
No, I'm not that childish. I'm not that childish. There's quite a bit. I mean, I feel like the fact that we have this man right here now, there's quite a bit that we're living out, and there's so much that I feel people don't know that we face. Obviously, on the legal aspect,
yeah.
There's a lot that people go through, but because of lack of knowledge, we end up doing ourselves a disservice. Whether it is interacting with the police every single day, or it is, being called to the police and I don't know, either being held at the police. There's so much that because you either A, do not know, or you're too afraid to seem like, that smart guy who tells
I know my rights.
You can't do this to me because you know what I mean? You end up being
Mr. I know my rights.
Yeah, so I feel like there's quite a lot that we left on the table.
Just one last question about the Khadija issue happening right now in Kitwe. She was found with cocaine. What's the worst that could happen to her? And I asked that because I know how we were workmates at some point, friends.
No, drug trafficking is a very serious offense.
What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst? Like how many years?
Imprisonment, up to 10 years, thereabouts.
Up to?
Yeah, especially second offense. It's 10 years automatic. The last time I checked the law.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's...
They should be convicted before.
We're actually workmates with him as well.
Yeah,
With her.
I'm not sure if she has, but I'm saying it's a serious offense. And I do know that it stipulates that on second conviction, 10 years. But I think there's a bit of latitude with respect to a first offender.
First offender.
Yeah, but prison terms have been not. A client of mine was caught smoking. They were having a marijuana party throughout the weekend, years back. And it was Christmas time. Me and my wife were in town buying bikes for our kids. And I got a call and said, look, I've been arrested in Chirundo and I need you. At curfew around about there, we just turned with my wife and headed to Chirundo. And she was convicted and she served a few months here. But it was over her smoking and not having quantities for...
Just smoking a blunt.
Because trafficking is defined as having drugs of, if I'm not mistaken, 3.5 grams or more. You know how small that is, eh? So if you have drugs of more than 3.5 grams on you, you are trafficking.
And reports say she was caught with what?
500 grams of cocaine.
500 grams of cocaine.
Yeah. So even people who smoke, that's one thing I've never done, actually.
Smoked?
No, it's, drugs.
You and I both.
Yeah, drugs I've never done. Maybe because, and I remember I would sit with people on campus who would be smoking, and I'm the one who would pass it around. Yeah, but I did my obligatory essay in fourth year on psychotropic substances, and there are huge adverse repercussions to drug abuse. Including psychosis. Cannabis. I know there's now a new move on the benefits of cannabis and so on. But that time, the information that we had and the research that was available at that time was that the cannabis dissolve. It's not water soluble. Cannabis sativa or cannabis itself is not water soluble. It's fat soluble, and it's more soluble in the fat of the brain.
So it sticks there.
Yeah, and if it's abused, that's what may lead to psychosis if it's abused. So it's, I think, a question of abuse. And the research that was done showed that is why there was aggressive behavior among poor communities, because it gives a lot of appetite. And if people have nothing to eat, they become aggressive. Yeah. Yeah, so...
You're not going to become aggressive anytime soon now, will you, since you didn't have breakfast yet?
No, and I don't smoke marijuana.
We're safe.
So, yeah, safe.
Mr. Mwenye, thanks a lot for this time, eh?
No, we greatly appreciate this. We need either a second episode with him or need to have his wife next, because there's quite a lot that we need to pick up
about him as well from his wife. Are you going to make that possible for us, Mr. Coordinator of this household? It will happen. That would be beautiful.
Do you have anything else you want to speak about?
No. I mean, thank you.
Is there anything that you want to think about?
That you think that he would have wanted us to touch on?
No.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But next time, maybe you can have them both. Then we can now have the other one, just be the wife.
I think so. I mean, really,
Are you married, you people?
he is. I'm not.
Yeah, I know that you maybe just to say that sometimes these modern trends. I know there is this movement on equality of genders, but I think equality of genders is not equality of roles.
No.
That is the problem that I'm seeing in this generation. Yeah, if I were to say to my wife, go and fix the roof, I think she'll look at me and say, but what is wrong with you? Or if there's danger outside, it's how you are saying, you say, go and check what's happening. Now that's where the roles come in. And I think that's where the confusion has been. But I think choice of the persons you have in your life, choice of partner, is the single most important decision you probably have to make in your life.
Deep.
Apart from the profile, how did you know that this is the one that I'm going to marry?
Sometimes you don't know, but it's just a hunch. I don't think you know.
When did you get this hunch?
And in our
Was it
time-
soon after, or
No, I mean it's just it just happened. Perhaps I'm a fortunate guy. I mean I could have gotten it wrong, but I got it right.
I need such fortunes? Hence my
The delay.
my question.
Your delay, huh? You
Well,
know,
not
I
delay.
got married at 24.
24.
Yeah.
Do you think you got married too soon?
No, you see, it's a function of my history. When now we're extending the interview, it's a function. It's a function of my history. Most people who had the background that I had struggled the way I struggled, want stability very quickly. So I didn't want to prolong my instability. Second decision I made, and maybe I'll be criticized for this, is I told myself I wouldn't marry a woman from a similar background as me.
Which is?
Poverty. The reason was simple. The reason was simple. Not that I wanted anything from her and I really didn't get, okay? But I wanted respite so that for at least 5 years, her family won't need anything from me because I'm sorting out mine. You understand?
Right.
So I've always been quite calculating. So
Does she know this?
she does. She does. When we met, I told her I have nothing. Except I think I had 3 shirts and 2 jeans and so on. But that was something I made up my mind. I had relatives to take care of, and I knew that would be a friction point. And now, I mean, I think it was a good calculation.
This goes against what Dr. Mjajati said.
What did he say?
He said, don't marry until you have money.
He's also right. He's also right. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's wrong. He's right for the man.
That's what I'm
He's
talking
right,
about.
yeah.
The man. Well, you didn't have money when you married.
Yes. Maybe I hadn't heard his advice. But
But had it been there?
but I think I made the right decision. My circumstances were different. Of course, with advice, there are general rules and then there are exceptions. I believe I was an exception. It gave me stability. It gave me the direction to pursue what I needed to do. And for me, I think it was important that it happened the time that it did. And
Amen to that. Amen.
So did she have money? Did her family have money?
no, they were comfortable. They didn't need me to buy them Colgate and soap. And you understand, right?
Yeah.
They would buy the Colgate on their own. Her father was Auditor General at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had nothing, and she would come borrow her father's Volvo and come and see me on campus at the time. But yeah, so,
You were saying?
So wait, I've got a question for Mr. Mwenye. You said you have a daughter, right?
yes,
Would you allow your daughter to get married to a poor guy?
it depends. My daughter will marry. Fortunately, my daughter will marry the person she loves
Okay.
because her circumstances are not mine. And I will not determine who my daughter will marry. I will advise her who she ought to marry, the qualities. But I believe that, I pray that me and my mother have modeled something to her which
She can emulate.
she can emulate too. So I will not prescribe who my daughter will marry. But this is what I would advise young people. If you must marry a poor person, be very sure that they are headed somewhere. I was poor myself. Okay, so I would not marry any woman, advise any woman to marry a man who's not a leader in their home, because that brings problems. And a person who has no vision and direction. So ladies should have long conversations. I know that we had conversations with my wife and searching questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is your direction? What is it that you want to do in your life? So for the guys, I would advise, it's not about poverty or not. Direction. And in life, the most difficult thing is to know. I was fortunate. From a young age, I knew what I wanted to do. But deciding where you want to be and what God has placed you on this earth for is the most difficult thing. I'll tell you one last story. When I left as Attorney General, and this is connected to something else, I left. I became leader of the bar, of the Zambian bar as Attorney General before I was 40. And I had become State Counsel. And after I left, I spent one whole year asking myself one question: who am I? And people don't do that enough. Who am I? Am I a politician? Am I a lawyer? Am I a public servant? Am I a businessman? Those are very important questions to ask. And the best advice I've been given, two advices. My pastor, I went to Jersey in the Channel Islands with my wife. And while I was there, I was doing consulting. I decided to take a career break and then came back to Zambia later. And we were talking with my pastor, and I was nursing the idea of relocating permanently. And my pastor told me something that has stuck with me. He said to me, do you remember the prophet who was told to go to the brook in the Bible, and there God will send ravens to feed him? So he said to me, do you know that if the prophet had gone elsewhere, the ravens would have still gone to the brook? You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So God says to him, go to the brook, and there I'll send ravens to feed you. If the prophet had gone elsewhere, the ravens would have still taken the food to the brook, and the prophet would have missed it. Then he says to me, every one of us has our there. Find it and stick there.
I love that.
And that, to me, is something that I have stuck on. Zambia is my there.
So how do you know where your there is?
And that is the most difficult question to answer, but the most weighty.
Yeah.
I'll tell you of my experience. Look at the things that people praise you for, the things that you do effortlessly, and the things that you love to do. And those are some of the things that you look. Now, how you are doing those things, your profession is not these things. For example, I've always been effortless in my public speaking. I love to read. That's why you see these things from childhood. I can tell you that when I was in grade 9 or 10, the best books up to now, I've got them here, by the way, that I have ever read are A Wreath for Odomo and Ken and Abel by Jeffrey Archer.
Hi.
Now, you know how big that book
hotels,
was. Yeah. So that book is big. I was reading that in grade 9. So I've always loved reading. So reading for my cases is not problematic.
Mm-hmm.
I love history. I read historical books from a childhood. I remember one time I was in grade 7 and my grandmother used to live in Challenge South those days. And there was this old man, he told me, and I could name every president in Africa, every president. So I've always had current affairs on my mind. So I knew that place of mine, that it comes effortlessly. And these are the things that law fits into. Now, your talents and the things that you do effortlessly, love doing, and what people recognize you to do is where now whether the profession or your business fits in. You understand? It's not the talents following the business, the talents are already there. So for me, I could have even been a motivational speaker, for example, because those things, or I could have been a history professor, but law is what I wanted to do. So let those come there. But the second advice I was given is I was a young lawyer. No, I was at Ziali, actually. This senior lawyer was taking me to court, driving, and we saw an old lawyer that was walking with a briefcase. He said, you know that man? He was MD of this thing. He was this, he was that, he was that, he was that. And then he said, yeah, he was that, he was that. And then he said, that man changed things too many times. He said, Musa, the beginning is always tough. In life, lessen the number of beginnings you have. That has carried me. So you need to realize that the beginning is always tough. In life, lessen the number of beginnings you have. So stick at it. Don't say, oh, no, I'm changing career now. Well, some people, it works for them. But the beginning is always rough. Our beginning was rough. I mean, in law practice, I used to walk. I remember I told myself, you guys start your work when you have already driven a car. Some of us, I used to walk as a lawyer. I told myself I won't jump on a bus. We used to live in Fairview, and I was working at Development House. I told myself, Lord, I'm not going to jump on a bus until I get my car. And I used to walk. You know, the railway line there, behind there. Yeah, I would go all the way to Katondo Street and walk back home until I got myself a car. So that beginning was not easy.
Wow.
Can I wrap this up?
Interesting.
But this was a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
All right.
Remember, first of all, to vote. Remember the Zamtel Social Media Awards. We still have like 2 months left, yeah? Was it a month and a half now?
Is it July?
Yeah.
But that's not when the votes close, I think.
It's like a month.
But yeah, star 9595 hash.
For those on the Zamtel network, you can also vote on the Zamtel app. It's called My Zamtel I think on all Google and Apple Store. Right? It's My Zamtel app.
I've had a couple of people sending screenshots when they voted for us. So, yeah, actually, that should be a challenge. When you vote, take a screenshot and send it to us.
Also on their website, zamtel.zm, you can vote there. So we're under Podcast of the Year category. That's that podcast. Vote. Let's get winning. And remember, we did say how are we giving away the money again?
Randomly, all the entire it's 25,000.
25,000.
Yeah, we'll give it away.
How are we breaking it down? Like 500 kwacha or 1,000 kwacha?
Well, $500. It'll be more people. And $500 is a lot of money.
That's 50 people.
Yeah.
So,
you have to be subscribed.
Exactly. So we're definitely going to give away that money when we.
Another thing that we need to give away this week are drinks.
Yes. Did they come?
No, they haven't. Oh, and Tecno has also sent me drinking bottles. Wait, that's actually pretty dope because then you can just put your drinks in the Tecno bottle.
There we go. Another idea.
So, wait, can we just randomly choose who we're going to give a bottle to in the comments now?
Yeah.
If you have a Tecno phone, if you have any Tecno phone.
And you voted.
And you voted. But how do we know if the phone belongs to the person?
We'll figure it out. Till the next episode. Remember to click on the subscribe button to support the people that support us. Have that job.
No, and big
free beverages.
All right, cool.
Right.